Let's talk about two more stories involving, well, it's always about trans women, isn't it? OK, let's call them what they are, trans-identified men. And the Labour Party has decided to ban men from all women shortlists when they select their candidates to run in seats. Well, I'd say winnable seats. Not entirely sure there are going to be many of those. This would comply with Supreme Court judgment. However, the Houses of Parliament are refusing to ban trans-identified men, which they call trans women, from female loos. Again, completely up against the Supreme Court ruling, making it really clear if you've got a single-sex space for women, it has to be only for women. Well, let's talk about this with Emma Hartley, no relation, campaigner at the Women's Rights Network, who joins us now. Hello, Emma.
Hi. Hello.
Thanks for joining us. Let's talk about the Labour Party first of all. I don't actually approve of women-only shortlists anyway. I've always thought they're rather demeaning to women. But I'm quite fascinated that the Labour Party has clearly got some good legal advice at long last, and their ruling body is expected to vote today on measures to scrap rules that allowed positive action schemes to be operated on the basis of self-identification. This is just meaningless twaddle for meaning a bloke who pretends or thinks he's a woman can go on an all-women shortlist. That's not going to happen anymore. Do you welcome that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's really interesting that it's clearly the lawyers that have forced them to change their policy.
Yeah. Well, now they're not inclusive anymore.
Absolutely. I mean, it just shows that their policy's not been lawful from the beginning, which loads of women's rights campaigners have said, you know, that's not right. You're including a man in an only women shortlist. I mean, I agree with you in terms of, I'm not sure what the benefits of only women shortlists are, but
if you're going to have them, they should only be for women.
Absolutely, yeah. So this way, it's very much.
Well, it is interesting. In the wake of that, your Supreme Court decision, there was a view that, well, you know, job done. It's amazing how many organisations have gone, oh, no, I think I'm not sure we're going to go along with that. Even the Equality and Human Rights Commission, which very, very quickly after that said, look, here's the guidance, everybody. There's no change in the law. This is what the law has always been. This clarifies the law. It's not someone thinking they're a woman or a man. It's not someone who's got a gender recognition certificate. It doesn't matter. It's biological sex. That's it. Full stop. Nothing to discuss. And then they've had an outcry within the body. We weren't consulted. Well, no, I don't see why you should be consulted, you lanyard-wearing class. You know, you're not a lawyer. You're not a Supreme Court judge. You don't get to have a consultation. But they are now having a consultation. It's going to take some weeks and months before they give a ruling on this. So it is interesting that a lot of organisations like Labour, of all bodies who've pushed this agenda for the last 10 plus years, that they have decided to basically backtrack on this so quickly.
But they're backtracking on it in a way that is sort of saying, oh, now there's clarity, now we have to change what we're doing, rather than actually, you know, apologising to all the people that this has affected. And yet there's still so much outcry within their own party. I mean, I think it's completely staggering that they're proposing, you know, just postponing the women's conference in general. That just highlights how really it feeds this narrative of Labour being a boys' club. They don't really care about women, because if that's the solution, because they want to avoid political embarrassment. No, the way you avoid political embarrassment is by being straight with the public about how you've been wrong on this, and actually, you know, speaking to members of your own party and going, yeah, this is the law, and actually we're in government. If you don't like that this is the law, we can change the law. But they're not doing that. They're just actually saying we're not even going to follow the law.
And that's a fascinating thing. So I was amazed when apparently, you know, Keir Starmer saying, you know, he accepted Supreme Court judgment. So one day he thought that trans women were women, i.e. men were women and could become women. And the next day he didn't think that anymore, because a few judges, the Supreme Court told him that. Now, if that Supreme Court judgment in April had gone against the For Women Scotland campaigners, and they said, no, anyone can identify as being a woman and that's fine, that's what being a woman means, I wouldn't have changed my view. I'd have known that decision was wrong. I mean, it's not because the Supreme Court have said it that it's right, it's because that sort of clarifies the law. But you know, it is a simple matter of fact that men aren't women and can't become women. I don't know why anyone struggles with this personally.
Well, absolutely, and I'm actually it makes me so grateful that actually the Supreme Court did make the decision, and trans groups were consulted. You had the Scottish Government and Amnesty arguing for trans groups, so it's just complete rubbish that they've never been consulted at all.
I don't care whether they were or they weren't.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, like, genuinely, this is a ruling about definition of woman, so why would you need to discuss that with trans people? It's irrelevant. But let's talk about the House of Parliament, though, because this is extraordinary. The House of Parliament have refused to ban trans women, i.e. men, from women's loos, despite the ruling. Spokesman said they were waiting for guidance from the Equality and Human Rights Commission, and we know that's going to be a little while. They said they want to ensure that all people are treated in an inclusive manner. House of Lords adopting a similar approach. But, you know, Houses of Parliament aren't above the law any more than anyone else is. The interim guidance is clear that basically anywhere where you have got single-sex facilities, then biological men should not be permitted to use those facilities. That is the guidance. But we've said, you know, they've seen the NHS and others saying they're going to await this guidance, but they didn't trust the guidance before others. I mean, we've got some sports that have acted on it as other sports haven't. I don't understand why so many organisations think they can flout this, and what's the answer to it? Is it just that women just go to court and challenge every single one of these organisations?
Well, I think that it's really sad that I think that that's what we've got to do. I mean, when they talk about compassion and dignity and respect, it's always compassion and dignity for the men. You know, what about the women? The women in our, you know, in the workplace and Parliament that don't feel comfortable accessing the toilets, which are shared, you know, with the cubicles. What about the compassion for them, for the women that go to the workplace and may have suffered violence and abuse at home?
Well, they're just, Emma, they're just transphobic bigots. Didn't you know that?
No, yeah, absolutely. It's just madness. And, you know, where's the consultation of them? You know, women just aren't allowed a voice in this, or if they say something, they're just told to shut up because, as you say, we're transphobic bigots and Nazis and all sorts of other rhetoric, which is just really ridiculous and yeah, quite unfair, to be honest. So.
Yeah, exactly. It is just unfair. It is that simple. Emma Hartley, well, I'm going to have to make you shut up because I've got to move on. But she's a campaigner at the Women's Rights Network. Thank you so much for joining us. Tom Slater, I mean, again, do we just need to have court case after court case? But my thing is, even with that, whether it's Houses of Parliament, whether it's the NHS, whether it's any other organisation, any political party carrying on with this madness, none of them really believe in it. I mean, if you do believe it, you're mad anyway. I'm sorry, I've always said this. But the thing is, even if you go to a court case and Free Speech Union and Sex Matters are helping to fund these things, it still costs money, it costs time and energy. But no one ever pays a penalty. Shouldn't there be a simple edict like right now? If you are running a body or you're responsible for this and you don't change the rules on this and access to toilets and changing rooms, things, by the end of this week, you will be held personally liable for all of the court costs and you will lose and you will lose your job. Let's just get down to brass tacks.
We may well need something like that. I mean, I'm hopeful that the first couple of cases will sort of send the signal out, because I think a lot of these institutions don't really care. They're just doing it because they're running scared of the activists and maybe make them run scared of litigation. Maybe that's the way to sort this out. But it is going to be a tricky thing to dislodge, and it shouldn't fall down to if it's a particular company or a particular service or whatever it might be. It shouldn't be a kind of lottery where you need one person within that institution who bravely stands up to it, gets in touch with the right people, crowdfunds. It shouldn't require that for women to have their rights in all these different places, but unfortunately that's what we're left with even after that Supreme Court.
It is that simple, isn't it?